We are live. Is it over or is it just beginning? Will altcoins come back? Can we ever have more than 3 up days before altcoins falter? I will tell you this if you watch the video. Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and XRP. Is there a problem? Here's a hint. No, right? It's just end of the month gymnastics. If you ever picked a day to ignore whatever happens, you would do it at the end of a month, right? Because big hedge funds adjust their positions. People take profits. They do asset allocation. Everybody is also running in fear of the Fed. So they're afraid of whatever the Fed's going to do, which is ridiculous. A, the Fed is doing nothing. And B, even if they do something, it doesn't matter. I will explain all that. There is the wild card of the strategic Bitcoin reserve tomorrow. Ironically, unlike January, people seem to expect disappointment, which is always interesting, right? The administration may be doing UPOD, under promise and over deliver. Because last time they overpromised and didn't deliver at all. This time they're keeping expectations low. At least I don't see it on the tape. And there is the possibility that this whole thing comes back. Led by, drum roll, Bitcoin. Everybody has an ETH Treasury now, right? ETH was going to 0. Now everybody's got to have an ETH Treasury company. There's even an XRP Treasury company. And to add insult to injury, these companies in the equity market who are adding crypto to their books, the stocks are mooning. So we're having alt season in the stock market. Really, that's what's happening. Any company puts any crypto on their books, even if the crypto is not moving, the stock goes up. I mean, that was not on my bingo card. However, let's perhaps think about it. So, obviously, stock market behavior can sometimes be absurd, particularly when they're in bubble short squeeze mode. But could it be that these companies, their stock goes up because they're putting on a hedge against the falling dollar? And what happens if this spreads out? Like it started with Bitcoin, obviously is moving over to ETH almost to the point where it's cringe. And then it starts to spread out. Like what happens if corporations and corporate treasuries don't wait for a Solana, Cardano, XRP ETF, and they just start buying spot now? And of course, as we all know, the higher it goes, the more they want it. They don't want it today because it's down. No one wants it today because it's down, right? No one wants it. Everyone's like, it's over. No, what's over is the persistent bearishness, because as my colleague from the YouTube member area said on a free stream where we hooked you guys up, because I can't figure out what button to push when I set up the stream. She said you could like put something up on a wall. Used to be the Wall Street Journal stock listings before TradingView back in the day. You get a list of every stock and what the closing price was. And her idea for crypto is to take a dart and list all the cryptos and throw it at the board, and whatever you hit, you're going to be just fine. Crazy, right? So what's over is how you've looked at crypto in the past. Because what happens if the administration says something, or the circus with the Fed continues, or the short squeeze in the US dollar ends, and everyone has forgotten about Bitcoin, and there becomes a reason to buy Bitcoin, most likely a Fed circus, or at least a circus around the do nothing event, which is going to occur every month for the rest of the year? What happens if it's Bitcoin that turns around and starts leading at a moment when altcoins are leaning over the edge? Said differently, don't you find it interesting that every time the market goes down 3 or 4 days in a row, especially when it gets hammered, you start to see announcements like Michael Saylor buys a little Bitcoin, or Blackrock comes in and buys more ETH. You can feel the suppression in this market. You can feel them lean on it until you look at it and go, oh my God, it's over. 3 days ago, it was going to the moon. It was alt season. And now it's over. It's over. Now, of course, that's exactly what they want you to think. They want you to think it's over. It's not. This is a classic case of pushing out retail, particularly in a choppy sea of month-end gymnastics, to where everyone gets negative and forgets about all the reasons, A, why we crypto, and B, exactly how much higher this can go. Because when they get done with the crypto treasury mini trades in equities, someone's going to realize that those stocks, even though some of those stocks are going to go up a lot, they're going to realize that the cryptoverse is really cheap relative to the equities world. Matter of fact, I was looking at something ZBCN, like DPIN for normies with like a debit card. And I was like, that's been doing pretty good lately. And I'm wondering if sectors are about to wake up. The other thing people are sleeping on, and again, this is actively discussed in the YouTube member area, not a secret, that the free ones are on the channel. What happens when banks start coming into DeFi? In other words, they can do stable coins. And what happens when they start coming into DeFi? And what happens when the announcements start getting made and everyone is leaning bearish? I don't know if everybody remembers the DeepSeek moment when the Chinese came out with DeepSeek and they said we made it for 1/10 of ChatGPT, whether that was true or not. And then that altered everyone's behavior. I'm wondering if the crypto DeepSeek moment is coming. And of course, it would be a perfect time for that to happen because everyone is leaning negative. Speaking of everyone leaning negative, the Orange Man and Bessent love to do this. They love to make more major announcements when everyone is being negative. Speaking of everyone being negative, here's what Legacy thinks of Bitcoin. Really, this is what they actually believe, I think. Citibank says Bitcoin will go up if more people buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin will go up if more people buy Bitcoin and won't if they don't. That's it. That's it. Right? Bitcoin is a commodity that everyone is chasing. So if that's what they believe about Bitcoin, can you imagine what they must think about the rest of the market? They must think the rest of the market has absolutely no value. None. Now, that is the perfect time to get involved. All right. Now, on the other side, we do have some serious cringe in this market. We do. All right. Guys are saying it's impossible to ignore the Ethereum Treasury Companies. Oh, my God. Watch out. BlackRock bought 4 times as much ETH as Bitcoin. Wow. Impressive, right? SharpLink chairman says ETH Treasury companies are the future. GameStop tokenizes collectibles. Right? You can now buy basketball NFTs online. That is all coming back. NBA Top Shot NFTs from vending machines in Japan. Oh my God. Please stop it. Please stop it. You wonder why the market's getting hammered? That's why. Look at this. Top Shot from a vending machine and GameStop tokenizing collectibles. Okay, so I'm all about NFTs. I'm all about people going crypto native. But can we please, right? Every time the market goes down, you see these things. Or the reverse. Every time these things appear, the market goes down. It's a sign of irrational exuberance, at least temporarily. Now, I have a question as it relates to this strategic Bitcoin reserve. Did you know that Michael Saylor and BlackRock combined have purchased 1 million Bitcoin? So they just like slowly and steadily accumulated 1 million Bitcoin. Now, who was the seller? I don't know. Wales, U.S. government. I don't know. But the point is, they did buy 1 million Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is not at, $6 million a coin. So I ask you this. Why is it that Uncle Sugar can't buy 1 million Bitcoin if 2 private sector entities did it? Yeah, okay, the price would be higher. I understand that. But that would also create a wealth effect for the common man. So why aren't they doing it? Like, what's the excuse? Because it's bad for the dollar? Their policies are bad for the dollar. Something to think about, right? In other words, if Uncle Sugar should buy 1 million Bitcoin and BlackRock and Michael Saylor have already done it, shouldn't the government do it? And if our government doesn't do it, will other governments do it? This becomes a very important question that, everyone was asking in January. It was like, hey, we got to do this because if we don't do it, someone else will do it. I don't understand why everybody's going to give up on Bitcoin. I think what they're doing now with things like Solana, where it hasn't moved in 2 years or in a year and a half, I think they're giving up on Solana the way they were giving up on ETH. And that is ridiculous because of the stablecoin trades, DeFi and DePIN, which I think runs largely on Solana. Really. Okay, there are other altcoin developments that I find interesting. Our GAN model cannot get off this coin Pyth. Every time I do a filter, right, it brings up Pyth Network. There are altcoin announcements being made, right? An XRP accumulation boosts hyperscale data stock 12%. What does XRP have to do with hyperscale data stock? Nothing. But large players are more interested in altcoins than altcoin traders are. And ironically, the news media is still focused, right, on Galaxy Digital, who is this big seller of Bitcoin. So ironically, they're big sellers of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin hasn't gone down. The rest of the market has. It's a very interesting theory that somebody could come in and sell Bitcoin, legitimate for somebody, and then while their trading desks are at it, hit the rest of the market. Get everyone out and negative. Because if everyone gets out and negative and say there's a bullish catalyst tomorrow or some sort of bullish catalyst appears in August, particularly in a thin market, it goes straight up. Follow me here. So it's the end of July. July was a good month. You made money. You're in crypto. You're an institution. What do? You sell. You sell. You take the money and you go home. You go on vacation. It's a good feeling, actually. When you have to, you have a P&L quota for the month or the year. You do a big catch-up, do a big P&L catch-up in July. You're like, oh, okay. Sell, leave, right? And that's what's happening with the short dollar trade. Everybody is covering and going home, going on vacation. And if something happens at the end of this month or in August that can move this market, it is really going to move. So you have to look past the fear of today, I think, right? Or, you can stay bearish while Michael Saylor buys another $2.4 billion worth of Bitcoin, right? In other words, isn't it funny how Galaxy Digital sells a whole bunch of Bitcoin and then Michael Saylor shows up with a buy? Like, who bought Galaxy Digital's Bitcoin? Who's standing down there at 117 like it was 77? Michael Saylor. And I understand that everybody is immune to these headlines, but I think since they've bought 1 million Bitcoin, that perhaps it's time to pay attention to their conviction. Because what happens in alts is alts are read for 3 days and everyone goes, it's over. And what should be over is persistent bearish sentiment and the will to carry on. In other words, people they don't necessarily throw in the towel money-wise. Their attitude just gets bad. It's just looking at it and they just go, oh my God, I hate this. At the same moment, an analyst who hasn't been wrong about anything ever goes, you know what? You can just throw a dart at the altcoin dartboard and you can't go wrong. Now, is that alt season? Probably not in the traditional sense of the word. But there are coins out there. There are sectors like RWA, DeFi, DPIN. Some of this stuff's already started moving, right? And then there's the future of money, right? Bitcoin Cash probably topped, but that was leading on the way up. These ideas of what happens if normies flip over and come in through Coinbase. Now, what's your job? Well, you're crypto native. Your job is to think about these things, use your imagination, and possibly grab it while it was down. PsyOps are everywhere. So I kind of wanted to buy Pepe because it was levered ETH, and now I feel much better about it because James Wynn just got liquidated from Pepe, and his account is now down to $30,000. And I don't know what this is, but it's definitely a PsyOp because the guy just, puts $10 million in at a clip and loses it all and wants you to get all negative. Wrong. Again, how many ways are there for you to get negative? Like on the positive side, SEC allows crypto ETFs to redeem shares using Bitcoin, Ethereum directly instead of cash. Like I can remember if that headline had come out in an up market, 2021, January, if that had come out in an up market, you'd have people going wild. You'd have XRP and Solana up 10%. Absolutely no reaction because people have become immune to this, not realizing that underneath the surface, there are these huge players hoovering up everyone's crypto. Okay, so let's talk about the Fed. So I can't believe the Orange Man actually went to court to try to get public disclosure on FOMC meetings. FOMC meetings occur in giant cement rooms with no signals like they're top secret meetings. They are because they move financial markets, right? Hike rates, don't hike rates. This used to be life and death for markets going back, decades. Now, it doesn't matter as much anymore. I'll tell you why in a second. But this constant harassment of the Fed makes legacy look more like a circus than it already does. Matter of fact, as it comes to me right now, this could be the reason why when corporations buy crypto, the stock goes up. Because this becomes more and more of a joke every day. Now, Powell is doing nothing for the rest of this year, unless there's an event, right? You have massive boom in manufacturing related to data centers. Now, there is no job growth. There hasn't been for 2 years, but I don't know that the Fed cutting rates can fix that. Matter of fact, the only thing that matters for interest rates is how much money Uncle Sugar spends. So if they're spending $2 trillion more than they take in, what is the Fed supposed to do about that? Yeah, lower rates would lower the government's interest rate bill in theory. But if they started cutting rates once, they'd have to cut rates 8 times. Because as soon as they give in once, they've lost their alleged independence. Now, they're not independent. They've been goosing financial markets for Wall Street for years. First, they create crises, and then they come in and solve them, which results in more benefit for Wall Street versus the common man. The Federal Reserve as an institution is the center point of the fiat legacy joke. It's the main reason, I think, why people like BlackRock came in years ago and said, we're doing this Bitcoin ETF. Now, Do we have froth in ETH? I never thought I would say that. But we do have all this stuff saying, you know, ETH Treasury companies will buy 10% of the supply, right? New ETH Treasury firm ETHZilla emerges with $425 million fund. Are you kidding me? Right? Are you kidding me? Right? Like, okay, I know BlackRock bought 4 times as much ETH as Bitcoin. I know Bitcoin demand is strangely drying up, which is why I have become interested in Bitcoin again. But ETHZilla? Really? Oh, and that is definitely worse than tokenized collectibles and basketball players out of a vending machine. You know, we do have our own inbred switch, really, where it's like we go from unbelievably bullish to unbelievably bearish, or unbelievably bearish to unbelievably bullish at the blink of an eye. At the blink of an eye. A word on Wiry Crypto. This is Roman Storm in the New York City subway after long hours of work without sleep while the government tries to put him in jail for writing code for Tornado Cash. You know, there are things that are going to transpire in the world not too far off, which Toby does talk about. And she talks about crypto as a way to save yourself. And you know what? This guy, because I've ridden the subway before. I used to live in Jersey. I've ridden the subway where, you know, you're sweaty, you're done, you're exhausted. I've done this. I've looked like this before. That guy is fighting for your rights. So why would you pack it in on 3 red days? Why would you do that? Something to think about. Let's go to TA. Okay, so for laughs, I decided to go to 89-minute charts. I don't know where they went, but I just wanted to pull some of them up. Okay. You have XRP at equilibrium right here around $3.15. And the tactical worst case scenario feels like $3. Solana, which hasn't done anything, is getting close to its discount zone at 177. Now, I know it's a range, but look at them puke it out, right? The second Solana goes down, everyone heaves it out. Everyone, right? Sui. Look at this downward trajectory. In other words, it pumped, perhaps artificially, and then it went straight down, right? With very intense give-up trade. Very intense. And interestingly, you have like a new low in price with the higher low in the momentum indicator. And like I said, everyone seems to be giving up. Why? Why is everyone giving up? I mean, I understand if you bought Sui up here and you're getting wrecked. I understand that. Now, for all the jokes about the ETH Treasury, you know, ETH can't get below its equilibrium zone on a tactical chart, right? Just kind of sits on top of this level. Again, I'm not really seeing anything that's overtly negative. And I know, like, again, if you look at altcoins, right, everything from Jupiter, Arweave, Near. Arweave was having a great day until that faded. The bid is coming, and you have to ask yourself, who is doing the selling? Who is suppressing Chainlink? We're going to have a cross-chain future. You know who said we're going to have a cross-chain future? Not me. Ready? The stock market. The stock market is telling you we're going to have a cross-chain future. But, you know, I don't know, man. Let's hit Chainlink down to 1735. Let's do that. Right? Let's all panic. Let's all pretend that what the Fed's going to do tomorrow matters. The Fed's going to come out. They're going to say, we're not doing anything. We're not doing anything in September. And we're not doing anything until we see protracted weakness. Have a nice day. And the orange man can go nuts on Twitter. And then what? And then what? You're going to say, you know what? I'm done with this. That's what BlackRock is going to say. That's what all these ETH Treasury companies and all these stocks are saying. They're looking at this going, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not buying treasury bonds. We're going to take a shot. We're going to buy XRP or whatever, right? I mean, XRP is headed for a former resistance point. So it's retesting, right? This is the daily chart. Now, notice that XRP was very overbought. Now XRP, by just moving sideways, is very oversold. What do you know? XRP is oversold. Solana, the battle at 180, right? You still have good support in Solana. And this is a daily chart. And one thing that I'll note, and I have noted this a couple of days ago, right? And Bitcoin in some ways on its 4-hour chart is the same thing. But you know what? I can admit, and I'm sure someone's saying it in the comments, it's like, hey, Billy Boltard, the market trades terrible. It trades terrible. Okay. Well, does it ever trade good at a bottom? No. And if you look at the 4-hour chart of Bitcoin, because I'm kind of getting into my DeMark Elliott wave. So you had a FOMO move to 123, right? Then you had A, correction down, B, spike up, and then you had this whole messy C, which is very typical, right? It's called a zigzag in a chart book. Then you go, oh, wait a minute. It's a new wave one. It's a new trend. Because that's what you do. You trend, then you zigzag, and then you trend again. So you have a trend, and then that's wave one. And then wave two and wave fours are corrections. And what do you know? You have wave two down in Bitcoin. So what's next? Wave three. What's wave three? Gradually, then suddenly, right? It just builds and builds and builds. And you have to ask yourself, even if Bitcoin doesn't go to the moon, what happens if you get a marginal new high in Bitcoin? What happens? Right? I mean, Bitcoin at 128. And what happens next? Now, if you look at a daily chart of Bitcoin, okay, it's very interesting in the sense that this was wave one from 77K because, you know, it wasn't really attractive down there. And then you have a wave two down to 98 because, you know, we had to take it below 100 because I don't know. Does anybody remember why it went below 100? I don't. Then you had a nice wave three up to 122. And then you have this little four wave. So if you have a big two wave like here, you can have a small four wave. Now, this hints at a new high for Bitcoin, just like it does on the 4-hour chart. You got to ask yourself, like, you know, you haven't needed to do Bitcoin technical analysis in a while. So what does this market look like if Bitcoin takes off and goes to 128? Now, I don't know. Maybe altcoins underperform. Or maybe everybody gets done. Maybe all of a sudden everyone realizes that if the government gives you anything on a strategic Bitcoin reserve or a sovereign wealth fund, and or there's a complete circus with the Fed in an illiquid market. Remember that whole speech about everybody going on vacation? Yeah. Whatever's going to happen in August, there isn't going to be anybody in the way. None. There's going to, I mean, this includes buying and selling. So, I mean, I guess if it's going to be a mess, it's going to be a mess because there's, you know, there's no one there except BlackRock and Michael Saylor. Funny how Michael Saylor does a little gimme, gimme, gimme right at the end of the month. Interesting, huh? Everyone's puking. And that's what Galaxy Sales Desk does. They call people up. They say, we have this massive seller. Do you want anything? And Mike is like, yeah, you got 9B to go. I'll take 2B. right? And I continue to think about Solana. I can't stop thinking about Solana, right? I mean, Solana on a 90-minute chart, you know, maybe you got 2 more thrusts down, right? Just to make sure everyone's out, just to make sure everyone understands, just to make sure they just push you to your mental brink to where you, honestly, you just don't want it anymore. You don't want it anymore, right? And you know, whale profit-taking concerns, not Fed concerns, not dollar concerns, right? Not Banana Republic concerns, not big, beautiful bill concerns, not any hope on the strategic Bitcoin reserve or sovereign wealth fund or some kind of positive announcement. Again, they're in trouble up there. They continue to say that this law enforcement issue is a hoax. And I think they are absolutely incorrect about that. And they're going to need catalysts, and they're going to need ongoing catalysts. Okay, so just as a reminder, in the Bitcoin member area, since we did a lot of inadvertent free work, I took all of the coins that we mentioned and didn't mention and put them in a 8-minute video, urgent small cap alts, which are undoubtedly getting monkey hammered today. And it's an absolute perfect time to get involved because we have a cool podcast. We have a super cool podcast, and we have a Patreon area. We have a store where you can get the Solana 7, an ideal day to get research. And we have all these $30 and $40 products, which you could get for one low price and get all this. So it's everything for one price. It's like buying 2 reports, except you get everything, including the strategic plan for July out until the eclipse. A very powerful set of research. And again, those podcasts in the VIP area, I mean, this market makes me upset. Don't think that I sit here and go, oh, wow, look, the market's down. Oh, this is great. Hey, let's make a headline about alt season. Hey, this is awesome. No. I'm wearing my, like, skull I'm unhappy shirt today, for God's sakes. Let's welcome who's here. Bull Runner, what's up? A #1 engager with our content. I don't know if you guys can see this, and Eagle King can tell me if I'm right or not. But I think they give you this, like, little crown. So you get emojis from, you know, either the $4.99 membership or from the VIP YouTube membership area. But they're also giving you guys little numbers to show, like, how much content I think you're engaging on our channel. So whether you're a 1 or a 3, we appreciate you greatly, right? DGen Joe, a member. What trades we thinking this week? YouTube member area, and it's everywhere. Patreon Platinum, Patreon VIP. Everybody's got a plan. This model said Solana was going to dip back to 182. I'm like, you're crazy. That's why I trust the model, right? Seabass says, you really believe alt season starts now? No, I don't think alt season starts today. You got yesterday's headline. Alt season starts when a bank comes into DeFi. Because again, it's not my line, that's Toby's line. And I know she's right, because you haven't had private sector announcements in a while. Donato, find out now. Yav, a loyal member. Tyler from the antivirus universe, another warrior. Crypto Rico 77, Bohemian Ape, Miklo, Diego, banging away with all the custom emojis we have. He's got John McAfee, he's got Chopper Pilot Bill, he's got Marilyn Monroe Toby, and he's got the best one, honestly, which is the Eagle King. Right, Warmon, Fuzz Crypto, Felix, DNT Saver, pancakes and peanut butter, an original. DGen Joe, To the Moon, Indie Rock Crypto, Zen Trader 77, Whiff Time, We Go Up. Yeah. No mention of meme coins. None. No mention of speculative juices in this market. None. Zero. I mean, this feels like everyone throwing in the towel on something as simple as like Mercury in retrograde or Saturn giving us one last slap as it changes a certain position in the sky. Let's put it that way. One last slap. When do you get bullish? When everyone hates it. Because I would imagine from looking at this that, you know, everyone hates it. You know, if you look at odds of a rate cut. Okay, here's something from Polymarket. Breaking news from the Eagle King. Fed decision in July. A 100% chance they do nothing. In September, okay, if I'm reading this right, it's like a 55% chance of a 25 basis point decrease. I don't think anything is happening like that, and I'll show you why in a second. And then October is 50-50. Now, one thing that I think we got to start taking a look at, because it's so insane. It's so insane that it may be getting out of hand. Right? This is S&P daily. That's the premium zone. This is a very interesting triangle that's here. I'm sorry, a very interesting trend line. Doesn't take a lot to break that trend line. It doesn't. And you have every LuxAlgo sell signal in creation on this chart. Right? You have NASDAQ. I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, look, you know, this was recession. And then look at the general public, FOMO back in, and this thing, frankly, ignore every topping signal possible. Every topping signal possible. Now, how long can that continue? I don't know, until the last guy's in the pool. But can you believe what this looks like relative to our market? I mean, even if you look at the trajectory of this, even if you look at the Bitcoin ETF, which, you know, it's had a nice uptrend, right? It's at resistance. Oh, okay. I get it. But look, everyone's getting out. It's going up and everyone is selling. Isn't that funny? Like, you know, I didn't notice, like we're doing it live TA. So NASDAQ, total parabolic, total insanity. Total insanity. Everyone in. Bitcoin ETF, everyone out. Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Don't you think? Because I had the tweet here, but did you know that even though the stock market is up, if you look at the stock market in terms of Bitcoin, the stock market priced in Bitcoin, it's still down for the year. Yet everybody is getting out of this, and it says nothing about the Bitcoin like, you know, MicroStrategy. Okay, let's sell MicroStrategy back right into support at equilibrium. Let's do that. I don't know. That doesn't seem to make any sense, but hedge funds love to attack, right? They love to attack. Marathon Digital. And this is true across daily charts. I think it's true in Solana. They are selling these stocks. Marathon Digital is basically a Bitcoin hedge fund now because they're not only mining it, but they're also buying it. Yeah, they're selling it all right into support, right? Coinbase, probably overbaked. Ironically, had money going green at the top. Fascinating chart. These Bitcoin mining companies have done absolutely nothing And so many people think that they will continue to do nothing. Now, of course, you know, it's been doing nothing long enough, so that speech probably doesn't resonate. But if Bitcoin goes to a new high at 128, after everybody and their brother piles into Nvidia, right? Look at Nvidia. And I understand for crypto people, this is the ultimate indignity, right? They're making more money off altcoins than we are. Meanwhile, this kind of stuff goes straight up. Straight up. Like, that's not the problem. Isn't that it's going up, is that it's going straight up at the expense of crypto. We should probably also look at the dollar, right? On an 89-minute chart. This is what happens when everybody gets one way, goes to its premium zone on an 89-minute chart. Everybody covers. And of course, it's also a good thing to bring up. It's also a good thing to bring up that what happens after everyone covers? It goes back down again. Hard. Hadn't thought of that, right? Everybody's all upset, wound up about the Fed, nervous about the 30th, wound up about the dollar. And every single time that we get wound up about something, 2 months later or 1 month later, we can't figure out what we were wound up about. We do the YouTube member podcast. I'm like, hey, Toby, this is such is wrong with the market. She's like, no, it's not. Why do you start every podcast with that? To the point where it became a joke. Somebody says they hit Galaxy today too. Yeah, they hit it hard. You know, Galaxy tried to break out of this triangle. Then they tried to break back in. Honestly, it's a little confusing. But Galaxy was doing better than most of crypto on the melt up in equities on the way up. Certain crypto equities were doing better than crypto. The only stock that hasn't come back because it's very expensive is Tesla. And I'm still waiting. And who knows, maybe I'm going to get old waiting for Tesla off this triangle to come in and do some type of stunt with crypto as a protest. I think the only reason why that's not happening is because of this law enforcement issue. What happens if these guys, like everyone's like, well, the Bitcoin Treasury companies, what happens if the Bitcoin Treasury companies, the next round are huge players? Crypto is like a little boat lost in the sea, and everybody is in a big hurry to sell the monetary system of the future in exchange for a wildly overbought market. Because again, it's so much easier, especially if you're retail. It's so much easier to buy it when it's going up, even if it's at the top. They love to buy high and sell higher. They love it, right? But no, crypto is red, and no one will touch it. Even our guys don't like it, right? VRA. I don't know. We take a couple requests. VRA. Very interesting. So you have this gigantic LuxAlgo trend line here. Wow, that's big right here. And you have LuxAlgo putting a little bit of support underneath the market. I think the other question I want to start asking is, what about Coinbase coins? Has anyone thought to look at Coinbase coins? Like what happens if normies come into the market? I mean, this thing with VRA, man, it's just like everyone is giving up across the board. Like when the market is up, everyone's like, oh, normies are coming. Okay. Huckleberry Native says, who is Uncle Sugar? I had a macroeconomics professor in business school. And he referred to the government, sometimes known as Uncle Sam, in old-fashioned, like, posters from the 40s, like, Uncle Sam wants you. Yeah, so he just called it Uncle Sugar. So he took a old-fashioned term and gave a new twist to it, and I just can't stop calling the current administration, the Treasury, the Fed, Uncle Sugar. Right? Uncle Sugar normally refers to Congress and those people. The Fed is the Fed is obsolete. Everyone wants to get rid of it. It's already gone. Everyone's like, oh my God, I need to sell before the Fed comes out. No, you don't. No, you don't. I mean, we do it every time. We do these moves into the Fed, and then the meeting comes out, and we go, oh, it's the problem. What is the problem? The problem is the amount of money that they spend. And this was talked about yesterday, but not talked about enough. Ray Dalio, after prophesizing the end of the world for I don't know how many years, finally moved money into gold and Bitcoin, 15%. And my question to you is, what does he know? Because it's not like Ray gets on the tape and says it, and then Bridgewater, his giant hedge fund, goes out and does it. Bridgewater has been doing it for a while. Bridgewater is so big that it takes them a while to get in and out of positions. Another possible buyer for Galaxy Digital's $9 billion in Bitcoin. Right? You never know. Oh my God. Think they need a distraction? Magnitude 8.7 earthquake in Russia. Here we go. Ultra massive asteroid on possible collision course with moon may trigger destructive meteor showers on Earth. I can just hear Alex Jones now. I can just hear him. We're talking about everything except a new financial and technological future. So let's hope we don't all go down in an asteroid shower. However, if there is no asteroid shower, and when we can stop hurting each other with earthquakes or stop focusing on all the things that are negative, we should focus on all the things that are positive. Like Roman Storm fighting for your transactional privacy, standing in the heat in the subway stations in New York. I don't know if you noticed, but the subways have awesome air conditioning inside them. The waiting areas, the platforms, yeah, they do not. They do not. It's like being in a sauna. And if you're in a suit, which I was in, that's why they have a lot of dry cleaners in New York. That guy's fighting for, and so is Janice McAfee. So is the antivirus team. I talked to that guy the other day. He's like, yeah, we want to have a DEX where when you buy and sell through the DEX, they run the trade somehow through the Monero privacy mechanism. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, right? Like some places will let you trade privately up to a certain amount. I went on Silent Swap. I'm like, oh, let me see what this can do. And if you want absolute privacy mode, which is cool, right? And I know the people who are into that. Wendy O is into that. It's cool. But there's a dollar amount on how much you can do in massive privacy mode. Really? Now, of course, they don't want to get in trouble with Uncle Sugar. I understand that. But what happens the day when you wake up and you need this privacy? You need this transactional freedom because aliens are landing or because one government shoots at another. This is why we crypto, and this is why we hoover up crypto when they're all selling, right? When everyone says it's over. You know what's over is the old way of thinking. The old way of thinking where, oh my God, when it's down, we don't touch it. Or it's never going up again in our lifetime. Or it just can't get going and I want to give up. The more you want to give up, the more you should stay. Right? Even if it hurts. Because the best trades are the toughest trades. That's from Paul Tudor Jones. That's the market update for today. We will see you tomorrow. you.